The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Government data shows Typhoon Odette has claimed the lives of 258 people and caused damage worth at least 3.6 billion pesos. Based on NDRRMC's latest situational report, 568 people were injured, while 47 are still missing. The typhoon also displaced around 610,000 individuals and affected over 580,000 families, over 4,500 barangays. Meanwhile, Typhoon Odette also caused damage to agriculture worth over 1.1 billion pesos and 2.5 billion pesos worth of damage to infrastructure. 6 days after Typhoon Odette barreled through Dinagat Islands, a teacher visits the province to see the devastation it caused. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us the front seat to the story.
Last December 14, Jonas Cuevas still held a Christmas party for his teachers at the Limera National High School in Dinagat Island. This was 2 days before Typhoon Odette slammed into the Philippines. When Cuevas came back to Dinagat, this is what greeted him.
Oh my God! Ang Tuesday, ang saya-saya pa namin na Christmas party.
The school that was once full of life was ravaged by the typhoon, just like the rest of the island.
Pati nga yung mga module ng mga bata, yung mga printer na gagamitin namin sa pag-print, nawala nga, nawasak.
A resident of Surigao was also badly hit. Cuevas came back to Dinagat to extend help to locals.
Most of my students now, sir, are homeless, sir. Totally nasira talaga yung bahay nila, winasak ng Odette, sir.
The local government of Dinagat has been calling for aid after Odette destroyed homes, hospitals, farms, and fisheries. Communication lines were also destroyed, so for the past few days, survivors were in the dark, unable to communicate with family and friends. This also made it hard for the local government to get help. Jonas relates how prices have shot up as people got more desperate. Regular boat rides that used to be 200 pesos before the storm have increased sevenfold to 1,500 per head. The local ferryman said it is because gasoline prices have also increased drastically. So when Jonas returned to Surigao, where communication lines had been restored, he began posting video clips and photos of his adopted home as a way to help Dinagat.
Humingi ng tulong, sir, sa mga kababayan nating Pilipino, sir, na at least matulungan man lang yung mga kasamahan ko doon o yung mga kapitbahay ko doon.
Despite the devastation, Jonas offers a glimmer of hope for his students and his adopted town.
Yung nawasak nilang bahay, mga gamit lang yun, sir. Mahanap din natin yun, sir. Maipupundahin natin yun sa pagdating ng panahon. Yung buhay, sir, mas mahalaga. So, habang nabubuhay, laban lang.
Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
Some residential towns in southern Leyte were completely ravaged by Typhoon Odette. Residents are now at a loss as to how they will celebrate Christmas with their homes completely destroyed. Marlene Alcaide with a report.
This is the coastal town of San Juan in southern Leyte. Nearly a week after Typhoon Odette struck their place, the trail of destruction left by the typhoon is still visible in the area. Almost all houses in the coastal town were not spared. Most no longer have roofs on, while others were completely destroyed. Here we found 67-year-old Tatay Boy sleeping on his chair. He and his family were traumatized after their house collapsed and was swept by the waves during the typhoon. And now, Tatay Boy says he is trying to save whatever's left of his home since he has no money to build a new house.
Yung anak ko, yung apo ko, parang na trauma. Ngayon parang gumagaling-galing na siya. Tapos yung asawa ko, yun ang panay kuan, parang iba ang minsan ang salita. O parang na trauma kasi panay ang iyak nila dito daan na lang sa dasal kung saan makarating.
Jojo's home shared the same fate as Tatay Boy's, but aside from now becoming homeless, Jojo's father Bonifacio remains missing. This as he opted to stay in his house even as the typhoon raged on.
Kasi siya lang yung naiwan doon Kasi sabi nung asawa ko, balikan mo na baka hindi na makalabas. Paglabas ko, hinampas na ako ng hangin Hindi ko na nabalikan. Ginalugad na namin yung buong baryo. Wala.
The local government says more than 3,600 households or almost 16,000 persons were affected by Typhoon Odette in 18 barangays. One person was injured. While Jojo's father is among the 3 reported missing, Mang Bonifacio was a retired army serviceman of the 36th Infantry Battalion. So Jojo appeals to his father's comrades in the military for help.
Nananawagan ako sa dating batalyon ng tatay ko sa 36 Infantry Battalion. Sana marinig niyo yung panawagan ko. Humingi ako ng tulong sa inyo sa nangyari sa tatay ko.
There's still no electricity in San Juan, so residents are charging their devices through the town's generator set. While smart cellular signal returned on Tuesday, Town Mayor Boy Mortera says that almost all residents had lost their homes.
Mga 90% ang ano talaga, yung household na totally damage and talagang kulang pa, 'di ba? Nakikita niyo yung ano. So hindi basta-basta ito kung manual lang. So we need equipment. Equipment like backhoe, loader to clean up this debris. So in that manner, para talagang ano, mabilis na dislocated na mga families, mga nawala talaga ng bahay. So we need some building materials. We need help from outside.
Meanwhile, food supply remains an issue in San Juan. That's why the LGU has already butchered pigs to distribute to residents in various barangays. But Motera says this is still not enough since only Tacloban has sent help their way. Banks and remittance centers are still closed, so they appeal for in-kind donations and aid.
Mayroon akong appeal sa lahat ng aside from our national government, kasi nandoon na yung mga NGOs kung gusto nilang tumulong, lalo na doon sa mga corporate firms natin. Sana po matulungan itong bayan namin, San Juan, Cabalian. Nakikita nyo naman yung mga the catastrophe that hit this place. Anong malaki. In my entire life, ngayon lang ako nakakita, aside from Yolanda, no? Ngayon ko lang nakita ito, yung devastation na grabe. So, we cannot do it. I think we need help. And I'm sure we need very badly yung tulong ng iba.
For News 5, Marlene Alcaide, we are One News.
Vice President Leni Robredo headed to Palawan on Wednesday after visiting several areas affected by Odette in Visayas and Mindanao. Robredo visited the municipalities of Rojas and San Vicente, where several areas, especially coastal communities, were battered by the typhoon. The presidential aspirant says she was briefed by local chief executives on the extent of damage suffered in their towns. Taytay Mayor Christian Rodriguez was also present at that meeting. In preparation for the Omicron variant, the government has shortened the intervals for booster shots to just 3 months. Meanwhile, the decision on Pfizer's EUA application to vaccinate children aged 5 to 11 may be released this week. Greg Gregorio with the report.
As a coachman in Intramuros, Freddy Tanco interacts with passengers daily. Knowing the importance of COVID protection, he can't wait to get his booster shot. He completed his primary set last September.
Inaabatan ko rin yung sa lugar namin kung saan ako nagpa-vaccination. Para pag nalaman ko meron na, pupunta kagad ako.
Salvador, an ice cream vendor, is also looking forward to his booster after getting his second shot last August.
Kaya nga ako nagpa-vaccine kasi hindi kami pinapayagan na bus namin na magtinda kung hindi kami vaccinated.
Freddy and Salvador are now eligible to get their booster jab. The interval before getting booster shots has been cut to 3 months. For those who got Janssen, the waiting time is shorter at 2 months. Previously, standard waiting time was at 6 months and 3 months for Janssen.
Siyempre, umiiwas tayo sa mga virus na ganyan at saka para rin sa sarili natin.
Vaccine expert panel member Dr. Ron Jean Solante explains that this is in preparation for the Omicron variant. This, as studies point, that Omicron has a high vaccine escape.
Why will you wait for the 6 months? In fact, The concern now is the Omicron variant, and we want to protect by giving the third dose.
Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres says adults may now get their booster dose starting Tuesday, as long as it's within the recommended interval. As for the vaccination of minors, the local FDA says a decision may be reached within a week on Pfizer's emergency use authorization for those aged 5 to 11.
Kailangan din nilang bumili ng bakuna kasi wala pa naman tayo yatang stocks ng for 5 to 11. Iba siya, hindi siya the same as the adult dose na vaccine.
For now, authorities reiterate the importance of following minimum health protocols during the holidays. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Where in the world are the best and worst places to be as the Omicron variant stalls the end of the pandemic? Rachel Chang tells us in this Bloomberg report.
In the December COVID resilience ranking, we saw broadly that the arrival of Omicron has very much halted the momentum towards normalization and reopening that we were seeing through 2021. But still, a key differentiator remained that most major economies were not willing to go fully back to the lockdowns of 2020. Instead, they were using guidance, softer curbs, and reliant on accelerating booster campaigns to fight the new variant. In December's ranking, we saw that warmer places in South America and the Asia Pacific had the advantage because they didn't have to face the winter accelerating the spread of Omicron. At the same time, Omicron had not yet really advanced in the same way that we were seeing in Europe and the US. So in December, number one was Chile, followed by Ireland and then the UAE. And rounding out the top 10, we saw places that, although were facing surges of infection, were very much ahead on inoculation and being the fastest at rolling out the booster shots that we know are key to fighting Omicron. So in 2022, the key question as we see Omicron really take over in the US and Europe is whether or not death tolls are going to trend up in line with what we're seeing with case numbers. So in South Africa right now, the evidence is quite mixed. You know, we saw that hospitalizations and deaths did not go up in the same way. But at the same time, you know, South Africa is a very different place with a different demographic. And, you know, it just come out of a Delta wave, which may have conferred some natural immunity as well. We don't know how the situation is going to play out in the Northern Hemisphere right now, which is also facing the fact that cold weather is the optimal season for the virus to spread. So in the next few months, you know, that's really going to be the key question. Can the health systems, maintain what they're doing in the face of these infections? Will Omicron be proven to be mild and the death tolls stay flat, although the wave is surging upwards? And in the case of the US and UK, you know, we're seeing the governments have said really that they are taking a pretty much a hands-off approach. They have ruled out going back to the curbs or the lockdowns of 2020. So what that means really is that their outlooks are entirely dependent now on how that fatality line really trends. So in the ranking overall, although we do see that countries have, slowed or pushed back their reopening plans, that populations are less mobile because, of course, there is a fear of Omicron sweeping through the world. People are staying home more. We're not seeing a full reversal of reopening moves in the past year. Border curves remain very much open throughout the world. International travel remains possible. Essential shops and schools are mostly open as well. So that is a very different situation from what it was in 2020 before vaccine.
Here's a quick look at some of today's headlines. President Duterte finally visits Siargao, almost a week after it was hit by Typhoon Odette. Former Senator Bongbong Marcos tops the recent Pulse Asia survey. Results also show that although far behind, the runner-up Vice President Leni Robredo is gaining momentum. And the losing streak continues for Blackwater as Alaska scores another win in the PBA Governor's Cup. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us again later at 10:30 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.